My freeloading relatives were shocked when they were asked to chip in on living costs and moved out so that they wouldn't give us a dime. Now they regret it. Some of my relatives moved to the US a few months ago. My parents let my uncle, his wife, and 2 daughters live with them. My parents live in a very nice, walkable city, but it's also very expensive, but it was also the only option my relatives had. They had basically no money, no credit, and their jobs would for now be limited to minimum wage jobs. We fronted the cost of their immigration fees, got them phones, found my cousins free English classes, and jobs that were close to our house. They tried to find my uncle a job as well, and my aunt full-on refused to work. Still, both the cousins had jobs, so they had some income. After 5 months, my parents approached my aunt and uncle about them starting to chip in for groceries and utilities, since the 2 cousins had been working for a couple months at that point. My parents went from having 2 people and a cat to now having 6 people and a cat to house and feed. My dad went from getting groceries twice a month to having to go every week. My parents aren't well off either. They live a frugal lifestyle, and my dad was fortunate to buy the apartment they live in a long time ago, or else we would have been priced out a long time ago. Apparently, that was too much of an ask, so they said they will move out. It was completely fine since nobody was forcing them to stay, and it wasn't doing my parents any favors. The whole time my relatives lived with my parents, my aunt and uncle would constantly mention that they had other family and friends in other parts of the US that would help them out. Where these family and friends were when I spent hours helping with their immigration applications, fronting their immigration fees, buying them phones, or even getting them winter clothes, I have no idea. So my dad said, fine, if that's what you want to do, then move out since you don't want to pay us anything and have all these other people that can help you. Pretty much a week after the conversation about chipping in, they had someone from my aunt's side of the family fly from Michigan and then drive them 13 hours from where we are to Michigan. I guess my relatives were correct in having other people that can help them. Before they moved, I suggested my uncle or my aunt and uncle go to Michigan first and see how it is before making such a big change. He refused. We even found places in New Jersey where the cost of living was lower, they could have jobs and still be close enough to all our family for visits, but they refused because they didn't trust the family friend who lived in that area that offered to help. The reason they didn't trust this family friend is because he had the audacity to say that in order to find an apartment, he'd need them to put a deposit down for it. He wouldn't front it for them. Once they moved to Michigan, they quickly realized the help there is more limited than what they had here, and it's not quite as nice over there. My uncle kept talking about factory jobs he could do out in Michigan, and he got one. However, it's not quite as cushy as he was imagining since they are basically out of the home from 5 in the morning to 5 p.m. My aunt even decided she now can work, despite telling us no earlier. The area itself is not as nice, and my cousins don't feel safe walking around. There is no good way for them to get around without a car, which they don't have. They are being nickel and dimed for everything that their friends over there are helping them out with. Not quite the same situation they had while living with my parents. When my aunt and uncle have called me, it's all complaints about how tough the work is, how his blood pressure is high, how my aunt can't sleep with the stress, they want to move back closer, etc. Even one time said something along the lines of, I'm of course not asking you to help, but we are having a tough time. The tone basically being one of expecting me to offer to help in some way. I have just said hopefully things will get better. At this point, I rarely answer their calls because it will just be complaints and whining.